Hey everyone, thanks for joining today's Product School webinar on how to break into product management. My name is Zakir, and I'm currently a senior PM at Amazon. Today's presentation will last for just under 30 minutes, so feel free to provide your comments along the way, and I'll be sure to get back to you later today after the webinar. So before I share my screen for the presentation, I wanted to start by sharing a bit of my background that I think is relevant to today's topic. So I started my PM career at Microsoft out in Seattle, and right out of college from the University of Michigan. Go Blue. I landed in product management in a bit of a unique way, in the sense that I didn't study computer science or intern as a software engineer at any of the big tech companies. So what ended up being the standout component to my story, which I didn't even realize at the time, was actually the startup that my roommate and I built and launched over the course of 2 years at college. And through that, I was able to learn a bunch of practical PM and technical skills, and was also able to showcase my ability to take products from inception to launch. So these skill sets helped me channel the inner PM in me that ultimately ended up being the difference maker for me to break into product management and land my first gig at Microsoft. So once I joined Microsoft, I ended up working there for about 2.5 short but important years before I decided to move over into more holistic product roles at Amazon, where I've now been since the last 4 years. And overall, in my PM journey so far, aside from the learning and growing through many of the PM realities in big tech, I've also really enjoyed coaching and mentoring others along the way and helping them break into the PM world that I've grown to love. So today's webinar is especially geared towards those aspiring PMs out there that are looking to get their foot in the door, either transitioning from another discipline like engineering, consulting, or operations, or applying out of college, like undergrad, MBA, or grad school. So that's enough about me and my background. I'll now share my screen and move off the camera so we can dive into the content for today's webinar. So for today's agenda, my goal is to first walk you through the realities of product management, then offer thoughts on how to channel your inner PM, and close with tips to market yourself and land a PM interview. I should also call out that all the focus for today is going to be on understanding product management, owning in on your skill sets, and preparing to get that first interview. But it's definitely not going to be focused on how to crack the PM interview itself. There's already a ton of content out there for that. So with that, I'll dive into section 1 on understanding product management. I want to start with a theme for today that really emphasizes what really is true to me as a product manager in my journey, and that is that everyone brings a unique strength to product management. What this point is really meant to imply is that there is no perfect PM. PMs come from a variety of backgrounds, and there is a unique strength and approach that each PM brings to the team. So in listening throughout today, I want you to keep this point in the back of your mind. All right, let's jump into busting some myths. If you're watching this, it's likely that you've already parsed through a ton of content on what product management is and what a product manager does. And so with all of that information available, I chose to start with busting some myths because there are a lot of preconceived notions out there that may not match reality. So I'll start with the first one. And you may have read that PMs are the CEOs of their product, but the reality is that is really just a myth. So while PMs, like CEOs, usually do lead, do set the vision for their product, do have ownership of their space, they actually lead through influence instead of authority. And so I'd like to draw an analogy to sports here and actually refer to PMs as the quarterbacks for their product, not the CEOs. And so as a quarterback would, a PM inspires their team with a vision, like winning a championship in the quarterback's case, crafting a strategy to achieving that vision, like calling offensive plays for a particular game, influencing others to execute, like their wide receivers or their running backs, and delivering the highest impact for their customers, like scoring the winning touchdown. So PMs may not be the best players on their team, but the QB in them should actually lead by example and be the engine that powers their team to succeed in achieving a shared vision. Second, I've heard many aspiring PMs getting scared away by PM roles because they don't have a CS degree. That's certainly also just a myth, and I'm just one example of that myself. While some companies may be biased towards PMs that are more technical, a CS degree is certainly not a requirement for you to be a great PM. In fact, many of the most respected PMs I've worked with are not technical at all. They succeed by driving clarity with a compelling vision and set of goals, using data to experiment and test hypotheses that they believe to be true, and obsessing over their customers by bringing that empathy into their day-to-day product decisions. Remember, PMs are not actually building their products. So they instead need to be the ones to help their teams, specifically engineering teams, by bringing that strong vision, defining requirements effectively, and communicating well with others and their stakeholders. Finally, product management is most definitely not the same at every company. PM roles exist in every industry, but each company has their own unique requirements. So for example, Amazon, like where I work, may require PMs to be owners of both their product and their business, while also requiring that PMs are strong writers. While at Facebook, they may require their PMs to be product visionaries and also be comfortable with experimentation and moving fast. So aspiring PMs really need to understand that finding companies and roles that play well to their strengths are essential for breaking into PM, and every opportunity will be different. Now that we busted some myths, I'll explain 3 skill sets that I think are relatively important for being a great PM. It's important to know that everyone brings a unique strength to product management, as I mentioned in the beginning. But I believe that these 3 skill sets are consistent across all effective PMs, regardless of the uniqueness that each brings. So the first skill sets are vision and strategy in that top circle. And PMs, I like to sort of define PMs as ones that live in the future and can craft a strong vision for the direction of their product space. They need to be customer obsessed and they need to bring user insights to inform their product strategy. Oftentimes, they may be industry experts and can understand where their products actually meet business value. They need to be passionate, but also cautiously optimistic, and so that they can see around corners to ensure that their product is moving in the right direction from a vision standpoint. The second skill set in the bottom left circle is execution. Since PMs aren't actually building their products, they need to be able to effectively transform their vision and strategy into a roadmap. They need to be able to turn customer needs into functional requirements. They need to prioritize based on goals, key performance indicators, and success metrics. They need to use data to inform their decision making and be comfortable making trade-offs. Ultimately, all of this will help them work with their engineering teams and partner teams to execute on their plan. The final skill sets are communication and leadership. And this is really the glue for the 3 skill sets and where I've seen PMs falter if they fail. PMs lead by influence instead of authority, as I mentioned earlier. They need to earn trust with their stakeholders through effective communication. And at the same time, they need to be able to write succinctly and gain buy-in from senior leaders. All of this helps them collaborate frequently with their stakeholders and partners and be well informed about the product. And so this communication and leadership, I really think is the glue that brings together these 3 skill sets for PMs to be successful. Now that we've gone through the foundations of product management, we're now ready to walk through how to channel the inner PM in you. So I'd like to start with introspection. And when talking to those trying to break into product management, I like to start by asking them, what are you driven by? What qualities would drive the inner PM in you? Understanding your deepest motivations will help you channel your aspirations as a career professional and bring clarity to whether PM is right for you, which PM roles you should go after, and how you should channel your skill sets to market yourself and maximize your strengths. So as you introspect, ask yourself some of the questions on this slide. And while you may not need to answer yes to all of these questions, at least understanding which ones resonate with you most will help you determine which of your strengths to own in on when targeting PM roles to break into. Additionally, you may also want to think about how you would craft your previous experiences to answer some of these questions. So, for example, as a consultant, that could mean putting yourself in the client's shoes and working backwards. As a designer, that can mean selling the vision of the customer journey that you defined with your PM. And as an analyst, that can mean using data to bring an objective perspective to a trade-off decision. I want to share a favorite quote of mine, one that I read in an article by the CEO and founder of Product School that's hosting this presentation today. And the quote is, if you want to prove you can build products, you have to start by building products. And I love this quote because it emphasizes that as aspiring PMs, you really need to bring out the inner entrepreneur in you and have this self-driven initiative to be able to prove that you can break into PM. More on that on the next slide. So as you're channeling the inner PM in you and preparing for putting yourself out there in the job market, you want to avoid receiving the classic response from the recruiter or hiring manager of, sorry, we're looking for candidates with prior PM experience. Well, how are you supposed to get prior PM experience if no one is going to offer you a PM opportunity? The solution in my mind to this vicious cycle is to either tailor your existing experiences to highlight the right PM skill sets, or take the extra initiative to gain new experiences that will build the PM in you. So here are 3 skill sets you should try and own in on when you're preparing and channeling your inner PM. First, be a builder. This is mainly for the non-engineers out there, but go build something. Showcase the entrepreneur in you by taking an idea from inception to launch. This doesn't necessarily need to involve code, but it should at least be something creative. And that could be an app, a website, a podcast, a blog post, or even a webinar. Second, be a leader. For those of you that have been in more executional roles, you'll need to showcase your ability to lead. You need to move out of the what when describing your past experiences and into the why. And this could include showcasing experiences like your ideation for a new product feature, or your ability to convince senior leadership on investing in a key business opportunity, or that time when you went above and beyond to discover and fix a customer pain point. And this all doesn't have to be restricted to just your work. Maybe think about extracurricular activities like a nonprofit you may have started or a group you may have formed to support a social cause. Your initiative to lead and ultimately your ability to galvanize others is really important to showcase here. Finally, be customer obsessed. Exhibit your ability to work backwards from customers, whether that customer is a client, an end consumer, or a developer partner. Think about how you may have prioritized to maximize the impact for those customers, and maybe how you continue to use customer feedback to inform product decisions for your business. Always find a way to frame your experiences by starting with first defining your customers and then continuing on with the rest of your story, including remembering at the end to highlight the end impact that you had for those customers. Now that you both understand product management and have sort of gone through a bit of how to channel that inner PM in you, this last section is focused on highlighting important aspects to consider as you're putting yourself out there and preparing for the PM job market. So, in typical PM fashion, I recommend you create a plan and prioritize before you even start putting yourself out there. First, create a spreadsheet of opportunities. An opportunity in this case, as I define it, is a combination of the right company and right role. Remember that every company has different PM requirements, so focus on roles that play well to your strengths. Focus on quality over quantity. Don't take the shotgun approach of listing down every single company, as that may distract you from diligently going after the opportunities that matter to you. You can always expand your search again later. Second, identify network leads. Don't underestimate the power of your network. Go through your phone contacts, your emails, your friends, identify leads and add them to each of the opportunities on your list. Use LinkedIn and find every first and second degree connection for each of the opportunities in your spreadsheet. Search for the recruiters or hiring managers for the roles you're interested in and list those down too. With this step overall, I highly recommend you actually go pay for LinkedIn Premium. They have a free 30-day trial, and if you haven't previously used it, but the monthly subscription is $30 per month and will ultimately pay for itself once you get the job. Third, prioritize and rank opportunities. By this point, you should have a comprehensive spreadsheet of the opportunities and leads from the previous two steps. So this is where your true PM skills come in handy. Determine some criteria which matter to you. That could be a combination of a company profile or brand, the role and the scope of that role, the location, the compensation, etc. And pick some weights that you would assign to each of those factors. And then ultimately, once you've done that, stack rank your list. So that way, your plan is now ready for you to actually go out there and start recruiting. So in this final step, which I'll go through in more detail on the next slide, just start by going through your list, which should be ranked already by now, and reaching out to your leads in the order you have everything ranked. Don't apply online yet, as this will be a last resort, only if your network leads don't work out for you. And when reaching out, keep your messages brief and purposeful. Don't waste any space explaining how you're a motivated, passionate, or hardworking person. Instead, focus on highlighting your accomplishments and why you stand out over others. Customize the messages and spend the time to personalize them to each opportunity. The cookie cutter templates out there are not going to work, especially when you want to sell the uniqueness of your own story. As a final slide, I wanted to provide some tips and things to keep in mind as you start to land the recruiter calls and interviews from the previous steps in the process. To start, you need to maximize that first call with the recruiter, because the recruiters are on your side. You've already gotten their attention with your background and the way that you've marketed yourself. So now you need to use these calls to understand everything possible about the company and role. Gather as much information as you can and help recruiters understand more about you, your background, your strengths, and what you are looking for. The recruiters themselves will help ensure the opportunity is one that you would be set up for, and also help you prepare throughout the process. Again, they are on your side and they want you to be successful. So really, really maximize this call. Second, as you go through the interview process, master the art of storytelling. And to do so, maybe treat yourself as a product. As a product, you have a vision, which is your background, a set of key features, which are your experiences, and strong impact, which are your accomplishments. You've done the preparation and channeled your inner PM already. So your interviews are ultimately the opportunity for you to sell yourself hard. Staying genuine here is really important. Finally, be persistent and never give up. Your hit rate will most likely be low, as it is for almost everyone trying to break into product management. But do not let that stop you. If you don't hear back from someone, follow up. If that doesn't work, go back to your spreadsheet and find another lead or go after the next opportunity. Landing the right PM job requires hustle and persistence. So never give up until you are completely satisfied. I'll leave you with the point that we started with. And that is that, again, everyone brings a unique strength to product management. So remain grounded in your preparation, stay genuine in your approach, and you will finally break into product management. I'd like to thank you for listening through the webinar today. I hope that you've learned a few things about product management and also feel more confident about how you can channel the inner PM in you to be able to break into the role. Please reach out to me on LinkedIn if you have any feedback or questions, and I'll be happy to respond. I also just published my first post on Medium, so you can follow me there for monthly posts on the realities of product management. Thanks again to Product School for hosting this webinar.